The morning sun cast long shadows across the wheat fields of New Eden as children ran through the golden stalks, their laughter echoing in the crisp air. Old So-young Kim chased her younger brother through the maze of grain, completely unaware that death watched from the stars above. Captain Jae-won Kim adjusted his morning coffee on the orbital station, reviewing routine cargo manifests when his daughter's voice crackled through the comm system during her scheduled check-in. From the surface, "Dad, we're playing hide-and-seek in the big field again." Minho found the best hiding spot behind the old scarecrow. He smiled, remembering his own childhood games in these same fields. New Eden had been humanity's crown jewel for 3 generations. A perfect world where families could raise their children in peace, far from the political chaos of the inner systems. The planetary defense grid hummed quietly in the background. It's more symbol than necessity in this forgotten corner of space. That's when the sensors went dead. Not malfunctioned, not damaged. Simply gone, as if they had never existed. Jae-won's coffee cup hit the deck as alarms began screaming throughout the station. His tactical display showed impossible readings, massive energy signatures materializing from nowhere. Ship contacts appearing inside the defense perimeter like ghosts stepping through walls. The Kralian vessels, they shimmered into existence with terrifying beauty, their hulls rippling like liquid mercury as advanced cloaking technology peeled away. These weren't the crude raider ships that occasionally harassed outer colonies. These were purpose-built hunting vessels, designed for one thing: harvesting sentient life. Down on the surface, the children's laughter turned to screams. Beam weapons lanced down from the sky, not to kill but to paralyze. Stun fields expanded, in perfect circles, dropping every human within their radius. The Krellians worked with the efficiency of practiced predators. Their boarding parties moving through the settlements like surgical instruments. Jae-won frantically activated every weapon system the station possessed, firing uselessly at ships that seemed to bend space around them. His missiles passed through empty air while energy beams scattered off deflector shields that shouldn't exist. The station's guns, designed to repel asteroid miners and smugglers, were toys against this. Technology, So-young, respond. Anyone on the surface, please respond. His voice cracked as he broadcast on every frequency. Watching his daughter's biosignature fade from the scanners along with hundreds of others, the children weren't dead, they were being taken. Within 3 hours, it was over. The Kralian ships vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving behind only scorch marks and the anguished cries of parents searching through empty homes. 300 children gone, including his precious So-young. The Galactic Council's response arrived exactly 47 hours later, a formal letter of concern, a promise to establish an investigative committee, and a gentle reminder that military action required unanimous approval from all member species. The bureaucrats would debate and discuss, while somewhere in the void, human children suffered in alien hands. That night, Jae-won Kim sent a coded message to Earth, one that would never appear in any official record. The message contained just 3 words, but they carried the weight of a parent's fury. They took them. The diplomatic pouches arrived at Earth's Capitol building with their usual ceremony and politeness. Ambassador Krelthik of the Galactic Council delivered the standard message with practiced sympathy. The Council deeply regrets the unfortunate incident at New Eden. We have formed a special committee to investigate these allegations and will pursue all diplomatic channels to ensure a peaceful resolution. President Hajian, you accepted the message with a polite nod, thanking the ambassador for the Council's swift response. The cameras captured handshakes and formal statements about interspecies cooperation, but deep beneath the government buildings, in rooms that didn't exist on any official blueprint, a very different conversation was taking place. Admiral Dong-hyun Park had been staring at the same holographic display for 6 hours straight. The images played on repeat, empty swing sets moving in the wind, teddy bears scattered across playgrounds, small shoes left behind in the panic. 300 children, ranging from 5 to 14 years old, simply gone. The youngest was barely out of diapers. "Sir, the families are demanding answers," reported Commander Boramley, her voice tight with controlled emotion. Captain Kim has been calling every hour. His daughter was among the taken. Park's jaw clenched. He had met So-young Kim at the colony's founding ceremony years ago, a bright-eyed girl who asked if spaceships could fly to the moon. Now she was somewhere in the cold darkness of space, probably terrified, probably crying for her father. "What's the Council's timeline for their investigation?" Park asked, though he already knew the answer. 18 months minimum. They need to gather testimony from all affected parties, review interspecies law, and ensure due process for the accused. Commander Lee's voice carried the same disgust that Park felt. The Krelians are claiming it was a rogue faction acting without government approval. Park laughed, but there was no humor in it. Rogue faction. With military-grade cloaking technology and precise strike capabilities, do they think we're idiots? Truth was, the Galactic Council had grown comfortable with humanity's peaceful nature. For 50 years, Earth had been the model citizen, always following proper channels, always seeking diplomatic solutions. Other species had learned to see humans as useful but harmless, good for trade and technology but lacking the spine for real conflict. They had forgotten that humans were the only species to emerge from their homeworld already battle-tested. While other civilizations had achieved peace before reaching the stars, humanity had clawed its way off Earth through centuries of war, revolution, and survival. The corporate wars had ended only 30 years ago, and the weapons from that conflict still sat in sealed bunkers waiting. "Get me General Kyung-ho Nam," Park ordered. "Tell him it's time to dust off the old files." Commander Lee hesitated. "Sir, those projects were classified beyond top secret. The peace accords specifically. The peace accords were signed with the assumption that our children would be safe." Park interrupted. "The Krelians have changed the rules of engagement. They just don't know it yet." As diplomatic messages continued to flow between Earth and the Council, promising investigations and peaceful resolutions, Admiral Park began making very different kinds of calls. Two military contractors who had been told their services were no longer needed. Two weapons designers who had been forced into retirement. Two soldiers who had been quietly transferred to civilian positions. The beast was waking up, and it remembered how to hunt. The message arrived at 3:47 Earth Standard Time, encrypted with codes that hadn't been used in 30 years. Dr. Mi Young. Lee was pulled from her bed by security personnel who spoke in whispers and showed identification cards she thought had been destroyed decades ago. Within an hour, she found herself on a transport heading toward coordinates that didn't exist on any star chart. The facility hung in the shadow of Ceres. Hidden among the asteroid belts, countless rocks, and mining operations, from the outside, it looked like any other industrial platform, complete with fake corporate logos and routine shipping schedules. But as the transport docked and Dr. Lee stepped through the airlock, she felt the familiar hum of power systems that had been sleeping for far too long. "Welcome back, Doctor," said Colonel Sang-woo Kim, her old partner from the corporate wars. His hair had gone gray, but his eyes still held the same sharp intelligence that had helped them design humanity's most terrifying weapons. "I know you thought this day would never come." Dr. Lee walked through corridors she remembered from her nightmares, past laboratories where they had pushed the boundaries of physics itself. The corporate wars had driven humanity to desperate measures, forcing their brightest minds to create weapons that could end conflicts in hours rather than years. When peace finally came, these facilities had been officially dismantled, their research buried under layers of classified documents. "How many sites are being reactivated?" she asked, running her fingers along a console that had once controlled instruments capable of cracking moons. 17 primary facilities, 43 secondary research stations, and about 200 smaller outposts, Colonel Kim replied. "The Prometheus complex near Jupiter is already online. The Hades station at Neptune came up yesterday. Even the old Olympus platform hiding in the Kuiper Belt." They entered the main laboratory where dozens of scientists worked around holographic displays, showing weapon designs that would make the Galactic Council's military advisors weep. The technology that had seemed impossible 30 years ago was now child's play compared to what humanity had learned since joining the galactic community. "The quantum displacement cannons are ready for field testing," reported Dr. Jinho Park, one of the younger researchers who had been recruited from civilian universities. We've solved the power consumption issues that plagued the original models. A single shot can now punch through 3 kilometers of reinforced hull plating. Dr. Lee nodded, studying the readouts. During the corporate wars, these weapons had been massive installations requiring entire space stations to power them. They could fit on a ship the size of a destroyer. What about the phase shift technology? Fully operational, Dr. Park continued. We can phase an entire battle fleet out of normal space, move through solid matter, and rematerialize anywhere within a light-year radius. The Krelians won't even see us coming. While diplomats on Earth continued their polite conversations with the Galactic Council, promising patience and cooperation, the real work was happening in the shadows. Supply ships disguised as routine cargo haulers delivered materials to facilities that weren't supposed to exist. Scientists who had been living quiet retirement lives suddenly found themselves back in laboratories, working on projects that would redefine warfare. The most dangerous part wasn't the technology itself, but the people wielding it. These researchers had children and grandchildren of their own. They understood what had been taken from New Eden, and they worked with the focused intensity of parents preparing to rescue their own. Project Nemesis was more than just a weapons program. It was humanity's promise to its children that no force in the galaxy would ever touch them again. The coffee shop on Rigel Station looked like any other establishment in the galaxy's commercial sector. Alien merchants conducted business over steaming cups, while cargo handlers grabbed quick meals between shifts. But in the back corner, a human named Jinho Park quietly updated his daily reports, just as he had for the past 15 years too. His Krelian contacts, he was simply another trader dealing in rare minerals from the outer colonies. They knew him as reliable, honest, and completely harmless. What they didn't know was that every conversation he overheard, every shipping manifest he glimpsed, every casual comment about military movements was being recorded and transmitted through channels that didn't officially exist. Commander Taman Song sat in a bunker 300 meters below Seoul, watching data streams flow across dozens of holographic displays. The intelligence network that was now revealing itself had been decades in the making. Built one careful contact at a time during humanity's so-called peaceful integration into galactic society. Agent Park reports increased military activity around the Krelian home system, announced Lieutenant Eugen Kim, monitoring communications from across the galaxy. 17 battleships have been recalled from patrol duties. Their defense grid is being upgraded with new shield generators. Commander Song nodded, making notes on his personal tablet. What about the slave processing facilities? Agent Choi on Vega Prime confirms 3 active sites, came another report. The facilities are disguised as food processing plants, but thermal imaging shows the energy signatures of containment fields designed for living beings. The scope of the intelligence network was staggering. Over 50 years of galactic membership, humans had quietly spread throughout alien space. Were legitimate traders and diplomats. Others were deep-cover operatives who had spent decades building false identities. The galaxy's species had welcomed them with open arms, never suspecting that Earth's peaceful nature masked a strategic patience that bordered on genius. Sir, we're getting reports from Agent Wu Jin on the Krelian capital world, Lieutenant, Kim continued. He's managed to access their shipping records. 3 cargo vessels departed for unknown coordinates immediately after the New Eden incident. The ships were registered as carrying agricultural supplies. But the power consumption readings suggest they're running life support systems far beyond normal capacity. Commander Song's expression hardened. Those ships were carrying the children in the depths of space. Reconnaissance drones that had been drifting silently for years suddenly activated advanced sensor arrays. What had appeared to be routine scientific equipment revealed itself as sophisticated spy networks, mapping every asteroid belt, cataloging every defensive position, recording every patrol route. The Krelians had built their empire on the assumption that they were the apex predators of the galaxy. Their technology was superior, their military was feared, and their intelligence network was considered the best in known space. But they had made one critical mistake. They had never bothered to truly study humanity's history. Agent High 1 reports from the Corellian Military Academy, another voice called out. Their strategic doctrine assumes that all conflicts will be resolved through overwhelming technological superiority. They have no protocols for dealing with an enemy that might match their capabilities. Commander Song smiled grimly. Match their capabilities? Humanity was about to demonstrate that they had been holding back for half a century. The Corellians thought they knew Earth's military strength based on the peaceful vessels they had observed. They had no idea that those ships were deliberately designed to appear harmless. Begin Phase 2, Song ordered. I want detailed analysis of every Corellian world, every trade route, every military installation. Find me their weaknesses, their fears, their breaking points. The hunt had begun, and the prey had no idea they were being stalked. The Corellian overseer was reviewing the morning's productivity reports when reality simply stopped making sense. One moment, the slave processing station orbiting Kepler 442 was functioning normally, its massive structure gleaming in the light of the system's twin suns. The next moment it was gone. Not destroyed, not damaged, gone, as if it had never existed. At all, Admiral Donghain Park watched the tactical display from the bridge of the Mother's Fury, humanity's newest class of warship that officially didn't exist. The quantum displacement cannons had performed flawlessly, tearing holes in space-time, itself to erase the station from existence. 300 Corellian slavers had been vaporized in an instant, along with their processing equipment and holding facilities. Target eliminated, reported Captain Unesio Yoon from the weapons console. No debris, no survivors, no evidence. As if the station was never there. Across 3 sectors of space, the same scene played out simultaneously. The human fleet had emerged from phase shift drives like ghosts, materializing from nightmares. Their hulls painted with names that spoke of ancient human rage, righteous anger, vengeance, fury of the innocent. Each ship carried weapons. That made the corporate wars seem like children playing with toys. Admiral, we're receiving panicked communications from Corellian Military Command, Lieutenant Bo Young Lee announced. They're demanding to know what happened to their facilities. They don't understand how an entire station can just disappear. Park's face remained stone cold. Let them wonder. Fear is a weapon, and we're going to use every tool at our disposal. The strike had been planned with surgical precision. Intelligence gathered over decades had identified 17 primary slave processing facilities across Corellian space. Each one was hit simultaneously, their destruction timed to within seconds. The message was clear. Humanity knew exactly where the Corellians conducted their darkest business. Sir, long-range sensors are detecting Corellian patrol fleets moving too. Investigate the attack sites, reported Commander Min Jung Kim. They're trying to find wreckage, survivors, anything that might explain what happened. They won't find anything, Park replied. Phase shift the fleet to coordinate 77 Alpha. We have 14 more targets to eliminate before they can reinforce their defenses. The human ships flickered out of normal space, moving through dimensions that most species couldn't even comprehend. When they rematerialized, it was directly inside the defensive perimeter of another Corellian facility. The alien shields and weapons were useless against enemies who could appear anywhere without warning. On the bridge of the Mother's Fury, Park studied the tactical display showing the location of every known Corellian military asset. His daughter would be 12 years old now, if she had been allowed to grow up in peace. Soyoung Kim would be 9, probably scared and confused in some alien holding cell. 300 children, stolen from their families, processed like cargo. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command, Lieutenant Lee announced. The Galactic Council is demanding an immediate ceasefire. They're claiming these attacks violate interspecies law. Park's laugh was cold as space itself. Interspecies law? Tell me, Lieutenant, what law protects human children from alien slavers? What treaty prevents the kidnapping of innocent families? The communications officer hesitated. Sir, the Council is threatening economic sanctions if we don't withdraw immediately. Economic sanctions, Park repeated slowly. They think they can threaten us with trade agreements while our children suffer in alien hands. He turned to face his crew, seeing his own fury reflected in their eyes. Send a message to the council. Tell them that every slaver facility will burn until our children are returned. Tell them that humanity is done being patient. The hunt was just beginning, and the galaxy was about to learn that some species should never be cornered. The Krellian Defense Fleet gathered at the edge of their home system, 37 warships, arranged in perfect formation. General Krelthax had commanded these vessels for 2 decades, and his tactical display showed what should have been an impossible target, a single human vessel approaching at sublight speed. Making no attempt to hide or use stealth technology, 1 ship, his tactical officer asked in disbelief. Their entire assault force is 1 ship? General Krelthax studied the readings carefully. The human vessel was barely half the size of his flagship, its hull scarred and practical rather than elegant. It looked like exactly what the humans claimed to be, a peaceful trading vessel, perhaps slightly modified for long-range exploration. Open a channel, he ordered. Let's see what these mammals think they can accomplish. The reply came not from the approaching ship, but from directly behind his fleet. 30 human vessels materialized from phase shift drives, their weapons already charging as they emerged from impossible angles. The single ship had been bait, drawing the Krellian fleet into a perfect trap. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Shouted, but it was already too late. The human weapons didn't fire energy beams or launch missiles. Instead, they did something far worse. They began to sing. The harmonic resonance weapons had been theoretical during the corporate wars, deemed too dangerous for practical use. But 30 years of technological advancement had made the impossible routine. The human ships broadcast specific frequencies that matched the molecular structure of Krellian hull plating, causing their ships to literally shake themselves apart. Within minutes, the most powerful fleet in Krellian space had been reduced to scattered debris and emergency pods. On the surface of Krelthanis, the largest slave market in the sector, Colonel Hyan Wu-Choi watched his assault troops deploy with grim satisfaction. The human soldiers moved like shadows through the market's corridors, their powered armor absorbing energy weapon fire, while their own weapons cut through Krellian defenses like paper. "Sir, we've secured the holding areas," reported Sergeant Dayun. "Park over the cum. No human children here, but we found evidence of recent processing. Looks like they were moved off-world 3 days ago." Choi's jaw tightened. 3 days. They had been that close to finding some of the stolen children. "What about the market operators? In custody, sir?" "The local population is cooperating fully. Most of them seem as horrified by the slave trade as we are." That was the strange thing about this war. The Krellian people themselves weren't evil, just ruled by a government that had turned slavery into a profitable industry. Human ground forces had strict orders to protect civilians while dismantling the infrastructure that supported the slave trade. "Burn it down," Choi ordered. "Every cage, every processing facility, every piece of equipment used to traffic sentient beings. I want this place to be a monument to what happens when you steal our children." The explosion could be seen from orbit, as the market's main processing facility went up in flames. Across Krellian space, similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. Human forces struck with precision and overwhelming force, targeting only the infrastructure and personnel directly involved in the slave trade, the galaxies. News networks broadcast images of human soldiers walking through burning slave markets, their armor gleaming in the firelight. These weren't the peaceful traders and diplomats that other species had come to know. These were the descendants of warriors who had fought their way across their own solar system. They were done pretending to be harmless. In the Senate chambers of distant worlds, alien politicians watched in stunned silence as humanity revealed its true nature. The quiet species from the Outer Rim had been hiding an industrial war machine that rivaled anything the galaxy had ever seen. The storm had arrived, and it would not pass until every stolen child was home. The datapad trembled in Dr. Yoonji Nam's hands as she read the intercepted Krellian research files for the 3rd time. Her medical team had been analyzing captured documents for hours, hoping to understand why the slavers had specifically targeted human children. What they found was worse than anyone had imagined. "Doctor, are you certain about these translations?" asked Major Sung-Min Lee, his voice barely steady. The hardened soldier had seen the worst of warfare, but nothing had prepared him for this. Dr. Nam nodded slowly, her face pale. "I verified it through 3 different translation protocols. The Krelians aren't just selling these children as slaves. They're harvesting their neural tissue to create biological computers." The silence in the briefing room was deafening. Admiral Park stared at the holographic displays showing brain scans and surgical procedures that violated every law of civilized behavior. The children weren't just prisoners, they were being systematically dismantled, their young minds processed. Like raw materials. "How is that even possible?" whispered Commander Borum Kim, her voice breaking. She had 2 children of her own back on Earth. "Human neural tissue is uniquely adaptable," Dr. Nam explained, her clinical training helping her maintain composure. "Our brains form connections faster than any other known species. The Kralians have been using this tissue to create living computers that can process information at incredible speeds." The Admiral's hands clenched into fists. How many children would they need for something like this? According to their records, a single biocomputer requires neural tissue from approximately 20 young humans. Systems for decades, which means... Dr. Nam's voice trailed off as the horrifying mathematics became clear. Thousands of children, tens of thousands, maybe more. Generations of human young who had simply vanished. Their disappearances blamed on pirates, accidents, or natural disasters. The Krelians had been systematically harvesting humanity's future, 1 child at a time. "Sir, we're receiving reports from reconnaissance teams on the ground," Lieutenant Yujin Park announced. "They've found the primary processing facility. It's massive, sir. Industrial-scale operations." Admiral Park's voice was deadly calm. "What's the status of the children from New Eden?" The lieutenant hesitated. "Sir, the facility shows signs of recent activity. I believe some of the children may still be... intact." The word intact hung in the air like a curse. These were children who had been laughing and playing just weeks ago, now reduced to medical terminology and survival statistics. "Admiral, we're receiving communications from Earth Command," came another report. "The Galactic Council is demanding immediate negotiations. They're claiming the Kralians are willing to discuss prisoner exchanges." Park's laugh was bitter. "Prisoner exchanges? They're not holding prisoners, they're running a processing plant." He turned to face his command staff, seeing his own cold fury reflected in their eyes. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we're not accepting surrenders anymore." Major Lee stepped forward. "Sir, what are your orders regarding Krelian civilians?" "Our mission hasn't changed," Park replied. "Protect the innocent, destroy the guilty. But now we know the truth about what they've been doing to our children." He paused, studying the tactical displays. "This isn't a war anymore. It's a crusade." The revelation had changed everything. What had begun as a rescue mission had become something far more personal. Every human in the fleet now understood that they weren't just fighting for the children of New Eden, they were fighting for every human child who had ever been stolen, processed, and turned into alien technology. The galaxy was about to learn that some crimes could never be forgiven. Some species would never stop hunting until justice was served. The orbital bombardment of Krell Prime lasted exactly 17 minutes. Not because the human fleet lacked firepower, but because Admiral Park had given specific orders. The processing facilities were to be captured intact. With their contents unharmed, every shot had to be precise, every strike calculated to disable. Rather than destroy, Captain Sung Ho Yoon watched the tactical display from his assault shuttle as the planet's defense grid flickered and died. Around him, 200 of humanity's best soldiers checked their equipment one final time. These weren't ordinary troops, they were volunteers. Every one of them, a parent who had demanded the right to participate in the rescue mission. 30 seconds to drop zone, announced the pilot.
"Oh."
"Defense batteries are silent. Looks like the orbital strike took out their command structure." Yoon nodded, studying the intelligence reports one more time. The primary processing facility was buried 3 kilometers beneath the planet's surface. protected by layers of armor plating that could withstand planetary bombardment. In normal circumstances, it would take months to dig them out. But these weren't normal circumstances. Remember, he told his troops, "We're not here to fight a war. We're here to bring our children home." Assault shuttles screamed through Krell Prime's atmosphere, their heat shields glowing cherry red as they descended toward the planet's capital city. Anti-aircraft fire reached up to meet them, but the human ships moved with inhuman precision. Their pilots guided by tactical computers that could predict enemy fire patterns with supernatural accuracy. The first wave hit the facility's main entrance like a sledgehammer. Powered armor absorbed energy weapon fire, while human soldiers advanced through corridors that had been designed to channel attackers into killing zones. But the Krallians had made one critical mistake. They had designed their defenses to stop armies, not desperate parents. "Breaching charge ready," reported Sergeant Min-young Kim, her voice tight with controlled emotion. Her own son had been among the children taken from a mining colony 2 years ago. "These blast doors are rated for military-grade explosives. Then we'll use something stronger," Yoon replied, activating the quantum cutter that had been developed. Specifically for this mission, the device didn't explode, it simply erased a perfect circle from the blast door, leaving an opening large enough for the assault team to pour through. The processing center beyond was a nightmare of sterile corridors and medical equipment. Human soldiers moved through rooms filled with surgical tables and monitoring devices, their hearts pounding as they searched for signs of life. The facility was enormous, a maze of laboratories and holding cells that stretched 4 kilometers. In every direction, "Sir, we found something," called out Corporal Hyjin Park, her voice echoing from a side corridor. "It's a holding area, but the doors are sealed." Yoon ran to the location, his boots echoing on the metal floor. The holding area was protected by energy barriers that hummed with alien technology. But through the transparent walls he could see them, human children, some sitting quietly, others pacing back and forth in their cells. "So-young Kim," he whispered, recognizing the girl from the intelligence files. Captain Kim's daughter was alive, though her eyes held an emptiness that spoke of trauma beyond imagination. "Get those barriers down," Yoon ordered. "And get medical. Teams down here now. We're bringing them home." As the energy barriers flickered and died, the children looked up with a mixture of hope and terror. They had been through hell, but they were still alive. They were still human. And now, finally, they were free. The liberation had begun. But the real work of healing was just starting. The last Krellian warship surrendered. 3 months after the liberation of Krell Prime, its crew broadcasting desperate pleas for mercy on all frequencies. Admiral Park listened to their surrender offer from the bridge of the Mother's Fury, his face showing no emotion as the alien voices begged for their lives. They're offering to reveal the locations of all remaining processing facilities, reported Commander Bjoram Kim. Full disclosure of their slave network, complete reparations, and exile from galactic society. Park studied the tactical display, showing the remnants of what had once been the galaxy's most feared military force. Hundreds of Krellian ships had been destroyed, their crews scattered across space like leaves in a storm. The species that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was broken. Their empire reduced to a handful of refugee ships fleeing toward the outer rim. "What about the children?" Park asked quietly. "We've recovered 237 from New Eden," Commander Kim replied. "Another 800 from facilities across their territory. Medical teams are still working to help them readjust." 237 out of 300 taken. The mathematics of loss hit Park like a physical blow. 63 children who would never see their families again. Their young lives ended in alien laboratories for the sake of biological computers. "Sir, the Galactic Council is requesting an immediate ceasefire," Lieutenant Eugene Park announced. "They're promising to ratify the Child Protection Accords if we agree to halt military operations." Park's laugh was bitter. Now they want to protect children? Where were these accords when our young were being harvested? The truth was that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The revelation of the Krellian slave network had sent shockwaves through every civilized world. Species that had considered themselves enlightened discovered that they had been unknowingly benefiting from technology built on the suffering of children. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from the occupation forces," came another update. "That Krellian colonies are requesting permission to surrender formally. They want to negotiate terms for their remaining population." Park nodded slowly. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. Former Krellian worlds were being transformed into memorial sites, their slave markets converted into museums that would remind future generations of the price of cruelty. Human settlers were already arriving to ensure these worlds would never again become centers of suffering on Earth. Memorial wall stretched for nearly a kilometer, its black surface engraved with names in dozens of languages. Hwa Young Kim's name was there, along with those of every child who had been recovered alive. But there were other names too, the ones who hadn't made it home. Children whose only monument was the promise that their deaths had not been in vain. Park stood before the wall as the sun set over the memorial park, his daughter's hand in his. 8-year-old Minesio Park had been born after the war ended, part of a generation that would grow up in a galaxy where the systematic abuse of children was not just illegal but unthinkable. "Why are there so many names, Dad?" she asked, her voice small in the evening silence. "Because sometimes, sweetheart, people forget that children are precious," Park replied, his voice thick with emotion. But we made sure they remembered. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The Child Protection Accords were now enforced by human peacekeeping forces, and the mere rumor of trafficking in sentient young brought swift and terrible justice. The quiet species from the Outer Rim had revealed their true nature, and no one would ever again mistake human patience for weakness. Lines once crossed could never be uncrossed, and some species would never stop hunting until justice was served.